And we are live. Hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to a very tasteful afternoon live stream. We're kidding. We're talking about wrestling. There's nothing tasteful about wrestling opinions, but we are back again with a live rendition of Grapple Gurus, your PPV and PLE review show here at the BC WrestlePod YouTube channel / network / whatever entity we're calling ourselves these days, because we do a lot of everything and we kind of have our hands in different pots, so this is gonna be fantastic. But I am your host, El Jefe around these parts, Mikey. I am the face that kind of runs the place. I am the man with half a plan, and I am joined today by one of my other TNA co-hosts, Mr. A to Z himself, Andrew. Thank you for taking time out of your afternoon to review a very interesting PLE for TNA.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and maybe it was because the ending left me on such a high note, but yeah, it was fun. But definitely was thrown for some loops with the way things went.
Yes, and as someone who made the whole entire PowerPoint ready to go, and then when I watched the pay-per-view, we got the announcement that some matches had to get changed. I'm like, all right, let me work my magic real quick. But before we get into the review, unfortunately, our third co-host, Will, although also known as Papa also around these parts, could not make it today due to some unforeseeable sickness, illnesses, things. So we wish him a speedy recovery. Hoping he feels better. And also he could tell us later how we were totally wrong for talking bad about certain people. Will, if you're watching this, I'm going to let you know right now, I am going to rip Jake Something and Rich Swan's match apart. And everybody's the blame on that one, so we'll talk about for that. But before we get into the review, as we always do here for the Grapple Gurus, wrestling is the thing we all love to do, but we need to do it respectfully. So, as the boss man, let's get this out the way. Important notice. We're thrilled to invite you to dive into the world of wrestling with us at BC WrestlePod. Your opinions and insights are what make our wrestling community vibrant and diverse. Whether you are a longtime fan or new to the scene, your perspective is valuable. However, when sharing thoughts of commenting, let's remember to keep the conversations respectful and supportive. Wrestling is a passion we all share, and it's in our spirited discussions that we learn and grow together. So let's celebrate our favorite moments, discuss the incredible matches, and maybe even debate the outcomes with kindness and respect. All to say is that if you are caught being a jerk in this live stream or in the edit interview later, you will be blocked, banned, bamboozled, all the words that start with the letter B. But we're all grown folks here. We don't got time to put our time and energy in online debates and nonsense. Just be kind to each other. In the words of Wrestling with Regret on YouTube, like what you like, don't be a turd. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into why we're here, Andrew. So, this past Friday, Under Siege took place Friday, May 3rd, coming all the way from the Armory in Albany, New York. So, fantastic. It was great. Before we get into it, just some initial thoughts. I agree with you, Andrew, what you stated a couple minutes ago. I enjoyed Under Siege, though some of the changes did throw me for a loop, which, you know, in certain cases helped. Other cases, not so much.
Yeah, there were some matches that we didn't get that I think would have helped elevate this card, and I think some of the changes definitely threw some folks off.
Yeah. As the kids say, sometimes in certain parts of the show, I felt like I was robbed of certain things. But we'll get to those matches. As always, like we do here with any TNA pay-per-view, we always end up starting with the countdown show. So this is the free pre-show that is usually on the YouTubes, which is like, hey, do you want to watch this pay-per-view from TNA? Then watch all these pre-show matches to give you a taste of what you would like to see if you wanted to watch the pay-per-view. So the pre-show already threw us for a loop because we had a bunch of changes to everything. So I did my best to try to find some stuff. So bear with me. I had to adapt to the last minute changes while putting this together. But we opened the countdown show with a match that was not advertised. This is TNA's thumbnail, not mine. So I would like to thank them for choosing this still image, because this face is exactly how I felt watching this whole entire match. I mean, so we, over the last couple of weeks, we have kind of expressed our not so fondness with a certain Mr. Rhino right here, but he was on the countdown, so we got to talk about this. So in the opening of the countdown show, we had Rhino taking on VSK. It was a match.
I think that was the biggest problem I had with it was fine, but it felt more like a match you would have on a weekly episode than when you would have opening your countdown to, especially like you said, if the countdown's supposed to get me interested in watching the pay-per-view, this ain't it. So yeah, if nothing else, we're going to use Rhino, throw somebody else in there that's going to get us more excited, like get somebody else with name value or something.
Or if you're just gonna have to have a match, what happened to our other folks? Like, where is Bhupinder Gudra? Like, where are the other folks that we know are still in the TNA roster? Like, I don't know. Rhino's not necessarily the go-to person I would pick to put on the countdown show, but I mean, this was a very. I'm gonna be honest. This could have been thrown on a Thursday television, and I would have preferred that. You don't put this on the pre-show for a pay-per-view. But Rhino picks up the victory against VSK. As soon as I saw VSK, I was like, oh, this poor man has no chance. We're moving on. And this was the start of what would be thrown for me and Andrew to be in, the Wonderland version of Under Siege, because everything else got thrown together. But something that kind of stayed the same on the countdown show is we had the FBI in action. So this time we had Ray Chaz and Zach Clayton representing the newly formed FBI, taking on the Batiri. And as soon as I saw them, I'm like, okay, local talent. So that means that FBI is going to win. Baller. Cool. This was also the match I was like, we could have had some other tag team. Use the Good Hands would have been fine in this. I'm going to be honest. You could have put the Good Hands in here. You have an established tag team. You want the FBI to get a win. The Good Hands are really good at, I don't want to say enhancement talent because they're more entertaining than enhancement talent, but you can enhance the FBI if you're trying to build them up as a newly established faction in TNA.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple of other people. Like, isn't Gudra, doesn't he team with someone normally or often?
Gudra usually, actually, yeah, Gudra has been tied to Rich Swann, which obviously can't happen right now. But you could have had a singles match. Gudra could have been in a singles match. But, look, I don't hate the FBI. I really don't. But at the same time, I'm just like, this kind of didn't give me any clout. Be like, oh my gosh, I should be keeping my eye on them in the tag team division.
I feel like the best thing that came out of this, I mean, it was a decent tag match. Again, this could have been a Thursday night match. The biggest thing from it seems like maybe this means they're gonna try to work the FBI up so we can actually get more tag teams in that title picture. So I guess the best thing that came out of this was the FBI got a win. That's about it for me.
That's the silver lining here. And the other silver lining thing is that I was the only one to pick the FBI to win in our predictions. So I was happy about that. Stay tuned to the end because I will be revealing prediction scores. So we move on from this to probably the best match, and there's no contest on the countdown show. This was changed last minute because originally it was supposed to be Laredo Kid versus Rich Swann on the main card in a non-title bout. But due to some circumstances that we're going to talk about later when we get to a certain match, Laredo Kid got switched to the pre-show. It became a Digital Media Championship title match, and he took on the last-minute addition of Casey Navarro. And as soon as I saw Casey, I'm like, oh yeah, Laredo's winning.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Casey was a longer-term TNA person, I would have thought maybe he had a chance, but I was happy to see Casey Navarro, and I've seen him wrestle a bunch in other promotions. Like we talked about before we went live, this is Diamante from Ring of Honor and AEW's younger brother. I've seen him do a lot of videos with Brian Cage. So, I've seen a bit of him, and he's a really good wrestler. I would love if he was actually in TNA. I think he could also be a really good digital media champion, too. It was a good match. They're both really good wrestlers, but I am hoping that we're going to see more of a build with Laredo Kid as the digital media champion, both for that title actually being used well and for Laredo Kid to get more than just be another person to hold it.
That is very fair. Also, commentary mentioned this because they're like, yeah, Laredo Kid couldn't wrestle for a little bit because he had a virus infection in his stomach and he almost died from it. I'm like, excuse me? I was like, what? I was like, travel issues my butt. I was like, I understand why they wouldn't lead, be like, yeah, so Laredo kid can't compete in this match because he's slowly dying from infection. But
Well,
I'm like, damn.
and that was he had that while he had a match against Vikingo,
Mm,
and it was after the match, like he collapsed, and they said he'd be out for a year, and he came back like 4 months later. So
it's
it's
wild.
crazy, man.
It is. By I hate to say this, but by default, this was probably my favorite match on the countdown show. Which then made me ponder, okay, there was one match that was supposed to be on the countdown, but it's not. I'm going to be kind of upset at TNA if they just removed it completely. Thankfully, that was not the case, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we are finished with the countdown show, and we move on to our opening match of the main card. This graphic is so pretty. But we opened up with this banger of a match. Josh Alexander and Eric Young taking on Frankie Kazarian and Steve Macklin. Again, the story here has kind of been, it's mostly been Eric and Frankie feuding, and then Steve kind of got involved, and Josh is teaming up. Why Mike Santana was not in Josh Alexander's place, who
Yeah,
knows? But it would have made more sense story wise. But I'm not going to complain because Josh is great, and all four of these men are fantastic. I thought it was really fun watching Eric Young come out in the headgear and wrestling with said headgear to protect his, surgically reattached ear, which is kind of wild that he's going to wrestle in that thing for who knows how long. I feel like me and Andrew are going to disagree a little bit on this. I thought this was a fun match, but I was kind of expecting more, especially since I know these four individually can go harder than what I saw. But I'm probably giving it a little grace because of the fact that Eric Young is still not 100% cleared, but is still enough to wrestle. So maybe they didn't want to do too crazy to mess anything up. But I wanted them to go a little bit harder than they did. It was still a fun match. I just wanted a little bit more.
yeah, no. If and watching the match, I noticed how much Eric Young stayed out, and I think it was because they just wanted to avoid any possible further injury. I I enjoyed it. I thought it was an excellent tag match. Like they're all really good tag team wrestlers. They worked well together. Obviously, we've seen some iteration of all four of these people against each other. Maybe it is because we didn't have Mike Santana, who seems to be the problem with Steve Macklin. But it also just felt like there were some stakes missing, and I think this was the first match that was kind of trying to get us back on track for what Under Siege was supposed to be. So it did feel like there was something missing, but overall, I thought, like, in a bubble, this was a really good tag team match between these four.
I thought this was a really fun tag team match, and you are absolutely right. Eric Young kind of was out of it for most of it, but again, that probably has to do with, getting your ear surgically reattached and then still wanting to go wrestle is crazy. But hopefully, because again, and we talked about this a little bit before we went live, I wonder if this is going to lead to a program between Kazarian and Macklin. Because again, miscommunication seems to be the key thing with these two. Because there was a miscommunication which allowed Josh and Eric to capitalize and pick up the win. So the North 2.0 picked up the win. Here's hoping that a certain someone comes back and then we can get a full reunited of the North. Please. But that's for another discussion. I really like this match. I just wanted more. But with Josh Alexander and Eric Young picking up the victory, we move on to the match that was originally on the countdown show, but now is part of the main card, which I was super happy to see more knockouts action. We had a random match between Ash by Elegance and Havoc. First of all, Ash and the concierge, the chevalier, is that I'm going to be calling him, interchanging those terms. I really love that they exercise the ring with the holy water and then Ash coming out with garlic. I'm like, they're not vampires, Ash. I wish she came out with like Ash by the Evil Dead inspired gear. Then I would have been like, best match, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Is she dressed like Bruce Campbell's character? Like, best match, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I really loved the theatrics of this match the whole way through. I like that it played along with like the canon of, Decay and how Decay fits into the history of TNA and like kind of supernatural wrestling characters. There was much more drama and theatrics in this than actual wrestling, but it worked. It played into Ash and her Chevalier's like characters, and it also helped because Havoc is a monster, so it kind of played into being able to kind of like level the playing field between the two and make things a little more, which is funny to say, believable, but it was believable within the world of TNA. And so I think they did a good job of kind of playing into that and making it entertaining. So even though there wasn't as much wrestling as we got from some other matches, I still really enjoyed what this match did. I don't know if we're going to continue to get anything out of this, if we'll see a match with Ash against Rosemary to kind of like give her more opponents before she gets that title shot. But it was fun, and at least you got her on there. Hopefully we won't get too much of that, because I hope they're going to bring in some more tag teams that Decay can wrestle.
Yes.
But for what it was fun and entertaining.
It was, and I also appreciated what happened post-match with Ash continuing to beat down on Havoc,
Yeah, I
establishing
thought
her as she's not the nicest person on the planet.
when I thought it was a good way to make her look, because while she's very like arrogant and kind of like not fragile, but she's just like doesn't want to get her. It
She's
seems
like
like she
very
doesn't want to get her
prim and
hands.
purr,
Yeah,
yeah.
but then it showed how like vicious she could be by like going in and choking her out with the string of garlic, and then like after taking her out in the ring when Havoc came back out, she then DDT'd her on the apron. Oh, she hit her with a bunch of chair shots and then hit the swanton onto the chair. It gave us a little more depth and viciousness from Ash, which I think is good to help build her up as a credible threat.
It is. And we talked about this on this week's TNA episode for Ash and for Jordan, because I think Ash is probably going to be the next person to go up against Jordan. I just hope that we space it out where maybe she fights Rosemary against all odds or something like that. And then for Slammiversary, Ash versus Jordan could be
Mhm.
the program. But who's to say? Because we still got a bunch of women who we haven't seen in a couple weeks. Like Tasha Steeles could get involved in some capacity. Giselle Shaw is out there somewhere. And I would be excited to see Jordan versus Ash, but I'm hoping that we don't get it relatively soon. But I'm happy to see that this match got moved from the countdown to the main card, because it's important to establish Ash and, get her more, since she's one of your newer knockout signees, to go from there. Okay, so I want to preface by saying for this next match, I love me some Joe Hendry. I really, really do. I also love me some Zachary Wentz. And on paper, I was just like, oh, this should be a fun match. I was severely let down because this was a really quick 5-minute match. And most of it was spent talking about Joe Hendry, like top of the UK chart, which is important. Go buy that single, you guys. Come on, it's fantastic. I kind of also feel a little let down because we had the apology concert on Thursday, but we're having Joe go up against Zach, and there's like no through line. There was no connection to the story. It was just a match to have a match. Like, we didn't get a run in with the Rascals interrupting the concert, which would have been one thing. And it makes me feel sad because literally, and I hate to use this term, but Zach got jobbed out to Joe Hendry.
It's weird too, because so Rich Swann was going to wrestle Laredo Kid for some reason, especially since it wasn't for the title. I figured when I saw the graphic, I assumed Rich Swann was going to wrestle for the digital media title, and maybe that was a way to start getting some gold in first class.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he got taken out of that match, I don't understand why they didn't have the rematch against Joe Hendry be at this, and maybe have the rematch against Joe Hendry and have everyone else barred from ringside or something. And then we had Jake something face Rich Swann, when if you're looking for things that you could have done with that, instead you could have had the Good Hands have a match against Joe Hendry and Cody Deaner. You could have had some involvement there, since Jake something was previously involved with stuff with Mustafa Ali, and the Good Hands, even though they got kicked to the curb, are still kind of faithful. They still trust in Ali. So you could have thrown that tag team match together, even if it was on the countdown or whatever. Like, there's more meat to actually continue storylines there. I don't understand why Zachary Wentz was wrestling in this match against Joe Hendry. There was no real reason for it, and it was interesting that we saw both one person from ABC and one person from the Rascals have matches, but we didn't see their partners. So it was super weird, just like the way some of the stuff was built. I love that Joe Hendry is so over. It was for what we got, it was a powerhouse versus a high flyer, and it was fun, but it was way too short. And when you set this match up, it ended exactly how I think everyone assumed it was going to end. So it was just one of those matches of like, sure, but why? And then why didn't you give it more?
I was disappointed, and this could have been a really fun match had you even did something like the Rascals interrupting the concert towards the end or
Hmm.
something on this past week. But we got this match. I don't blame the performers. I blame the lack of build to this and just throwing people in the ring to, just to have a match. And justice for Zachary Wentz. Look, we talk a lot of smack of how we're done. We're tired of seeing ABC and the Rascals go at it in some capacity, but this is not what I meant that they need to do something else, TNA. This is not what I meant for the Rascals to do something else. So let's move on because then we get into some weird territory as well. I'm upset at myself because I put this out in the universe when we did the Rebellion review and how I said I don't want these titles to be hot potatoed. And I'm just going to spoil it, but we'll talk about the match itself, which is also too short for me, but they got hot potatoed again. All right, let's dig into this because I'm kind of mad. I get it. I really do, but I'm like, I don't want these titles to be hot potatoed.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, I don't think they're going to be now.
I think what makes me more upset is because that it's really difficult to try to build up this newly established team of Spitfire. I mean, they've been working together since Hard to Kill, technically, but they are still the newest Knockouts tag team because Masha and Killer Kelly have been together for quite some time. Decay has been together for almost 2-3 years at this point. With the also inclusion of their iteration when they were the Death Dolls with Taya
Yeah.
Valkyrie last year. And the fact that you took the titles off of Spitfire makes me super sad. But then again, I don't blame the talent. It's the lack of depth of this knockouts division. I am happy to see Miss Alicia Edwards hold some sort of championship gold for the first
Yeah.
time in her career that I found out.
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
That was something I got from this too. Was like, characters aside, like, really happy for Alicia Edwards to actually hold this gold, especially because she's been doing a lot of work keeping up with the rest of the system, and I think I think it was smart to put the tag team titles on her because she can be a credible threat in that division, as where I don't think any of us are thinking she's going to dethrone Jordan. And I'd like to see maybe some evolution of like Masha is basically like Alicia's like enforcer. Like she's not actually a part of the system, but she's like been hired on as like her hired muscle. And then that's why they work as like a tag team. So I'd like to see more of her show up with the system, but like even if it's like you see the group of the system and then she's just off to the side, like I'm just here till I'm needed kind of a thing. But yeah, it's a bummer. It really sucks because I think the division needs more depth. I really hope this isn't the end of Spitfire. I hope we get to see them continue wrestling as a tag team, and I hope that we get more long term, not only reigns as with the Knockouts champions, but also like storytelling, because. And I think that will come if we have more tag teams because we can have some stories going on between tag teams that aren't yet in the title picture, and then also between like the number one contenders and the champions building up to like big championship matches instead of just cool, we have another pay-per-view, so who's the person that's going to win it at this one, and that's just we need more depth all around.
We absolutely need more depth for sure. So yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I will say though, I thought the match was handled really well. Everyone wrestled excellently, and I think it was a good balance too of like seeing the dynamics of Alicia and Masha while showing what Spitfire's really good at.
And again, Andrew reminded me that these four women, Danny Luna is the only one in her 20s.
No, Masha's only a year
right.
older. She's 25. Danny Luna's 24. And then Alicia, I think, is 37, and Jody Thread is 35.
Good on these women.
Yeah.
It's just nuts that Masha and Danny are so good at such a young age.
It's crazy. It makes me happy too because, like, we have women that are going to be building. Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's what we need. We need, look, it is no secret that me, Andrew, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod boys are big fans of women's wrestling, regardless of promotion. And so, the more women that get booked into these major, promotions, I'm all here for it. But congratulations to Alicia and Masha for becoming our new Knockouts World Tag Team Champs. And I'm interested to see where we go now that the system has pretty much a good chunk of the gold in TNA. All right. So let's go on to our next match. So this is what we was originally. I was like, this was the match that was advertised, and then we found out during the opening of the countdown, plus a reminder on the main show, that Hammerstone is not medically cleared. Nothing has legitimately come out, but me and Andrew have conspiracy theoried ourselves, and we can only speculate because Hammerstone leaned out so much for the competition and the powerlifting and the muscle competitions that he participates in that he probably dehydrated himself too fast. And that is why Jordan Grace was smart and she took time off from TNA when she did that over the summer before coming back. Man. And so they're like, yeah, so Hammerstone is no longer available. So they're like, but Jake something is still gonna wrestle. I'm like, oh, okay, who are we gonna get? It's like maybe the Good Hands. I don't know, maybe someone from Jake's past. This is not a Dr. Rich Swann. I really love it. And then on paper, I was like, actually, this actually might be a lot of fun. Rich Swann and Jake something do have a history. I have seen matches between the two of them beforehand, and I know they both can go, and I think this is gonna be a fun match. By the end of this match, Andrew, I was very upset because of not what we got in the ring, but it was all the extra shenanigans that went on this is an example of what happens when extra interference and shenanigans on the outside of the ring actually take away from the match itself. This was my least favorite match of the whole entire evening.
Yeah, I will say we got a promo from First Class before we went into this, and they actually had some legit points when they brought up this match about how Rich Swann was preparing to wrestle Laredo Kid, and now he's going against Jake something, and it's a completely different opponent. So, like, that's not fair that he's supposed to go out there and just do this, on top of the fact that he was going in to wrestle a champion with, even though it was a non-title match, if he beat a champion in a non-title match, he'd be in line for a championship shot. So I like, as much as I dislike them, those are fair points. It was super weird because I mean I appreciate the fact that they found ways to make it believable that Swann was able to like topple Jake something throughout most of the match because he kept going after us. I don't understand the shenanigans with Cody Deaner because it didn't change the outcome. Like, if he was going to come out and do something, he should have either directly cost Jake something the match, or Jake should have won because he had backup, which was supposed to be the idea. And I think when he came out and said that Santino gave him the ability to like come out and like change some stuff, even the audience was cheering, tag team match after they were done cheering who's this guy. But like nothing, he came out and did that, and then he just got beat up basically. The two funniest things and the best parts of this match were him calling AJ Francis Dollar Tree, and at one point when Rich Swann hit a big move on Jake something, the audience cheered, whose house? Swerve's house. And AJ Francis responded with, that's racist.
That's the sucky thing too. Like, this could have been a really fun comedic tag team match if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
But all the extra shenanigans was ridiculous. And okay, so my biggest issue with this too is that I know AJ's a big dude, but I'm looking at AJ, I'm looking at Jake. There is no way that AJ Francis should easily shoulder check Jake. Like, Jake is literally built like a brick house.
I mean, AJ was a football player, so
That's
I mean,
true.
There's something to that. I think
that's fair.
I think it would have been more interesting for this match if initially it would have been billed as, since Hammerstone got left out, we did Jake something and Cody Deaner against First Class. And
I would have loved it.
On top of that, Deaner could have taken the pin, because part of my issue is that Jake is now 0-2 in his last 2 matches.
That part made me mad. I was like, why did
Yeah.
he go?
So if you had Diener in the tag match, Diener could have taken a loss, which, let's face it, is not going to hurt him at all. It gives First Class a win.
It
And
keeps Jake from having this
yeah.
losing streak.
So I think there was just a lot of like booking mistakes, especially because AJ was at ringside and got involved. So, you could have had him just wrestle. And so it was across the board. It was some weird match choices and booking choices, and like the way certain things were programmed were just, I think, could have just been handled a lot better.
Yeah. As we said, Rich Swann picks up the victory, so Jake something is the loser in this match, and it pains me to say it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I was saddened. This was my least favorite match, not because of the talent involved, just the booking decisions was very, very weird.
Yeah.
I will say, however, after this match, all the way to the end of the show, for me, was the best stretch for me of this whole entire pay-per-view. And that kicks off with this baller match, though I wish we did get a little bit more time than what we did, but we have Jonathan Gresham taking on the time splitter himself, Kushida, and I'm just gonna let this next image speak for itself.
Yeah.
Just yes. Oh my gosh, I was like, yo, Jonathan Gresham is going to be the TNA version of the Great Muta. I'm here for it. It just looks so good, Andrew.
Yeah, it was cool. It was interesting to see someone like Jonathan Gresham, who has so classically been this like pure style wrestler, this like not a lot like grandiose things about him, take on this kind of supernatural persona, which is fun. It's cool. It gives him something very different to do, but he still keeps that style that he has, which I think worked really well with Kushida. I think they're watching them go back and forth was incredible. It's like watching two high flyers go against each other, but this was two mat wrestlers go against each other. I will say I was surprised how much of this match was Kushida like winning out most of the exchanges and kind of coming out on top of Gresham most of the time, which I was surprised both because this is Gresham's big return, and also because if he's supposed to be this dark supernatural force, I felt like he would have been more dominant. So it surprised me in the programming of the match that way. I just wanted to see this new Jonathan Gresham be more the type of frightening that we got with the end of the match throughout the match. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see as he has a few more matches to see how he kind of works through those ones. I'm also interested to see if the ink will be kind of like Julia's Black Mist. Are we going to see people that get exposed to it make some dark turns, have some influence, or what?
Now, hear me out, right? So, with this new iteration of Jonathan Gresham's Octopus moniker, I would love for it to lean into, even though he was a total racist, I would like for Jonathan Gresham to lean into more of like the lore of Call of Cthulhu and all of that
Mhm.
mythos too. Like literally, he's the walking embodiment of H.P. Lovecraft. And what I would love is if this ink makes the wrestlers go mad.
Yeah.
Like, that just have short bouts of insanity and madness, which are true staples of the gothic horror that is, well, the cosmic horror of, the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and Call of Cthulhu and all that kind of stuff. Again, you can't tell me that this is not cool.
And I love the fact that he came out with all that gear on. Like, he has the detachable part, which unfortunately fell off when he shook his head, but he played into it like it was supposed to just come off.
Right.
But I love the fact that he got down. He, got down off the turnbuckle when the match was about to start, and Kushida was like, "Is he gonna take the mask off? Like, didn't know what to do with that. Like, it's such a off-putting, look for Jonathan Gresham, especially because we all know who he is, and it's not like he's coming out with like a different name. So just that look, you're just like, okay, this is super weird. And you've got this dude who can out wrestle most people, and he's built like a a friggin' cinder block.
He's literally Mrs. Jordan Grace because
Oh
him
yeah,
and Jordan are a couple. They're married.
yeah, and he's like just an inch taller than her, and they're built the exact same way. Like it's yeah. So yeah, it'll be cool. I'm hoping that we get to see more of this. I don't know if they're gonna try and have him go after the X Division title. I'd kind of like to see him maybe go after the digital media title with this persona and like build a little like, world in that area so that way we can actually have some focus for each belt and its divisions. So it'll be interesting, but I look forward to seeing what his next like 2 to 3 matches are going to be like so we can really get an idea of what the story is going to be like with him.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we were talking about his other counterpart a little bit earlier because we leave this match to go into this match on paper had no right to be as fun as it was. And I'm gonna be real, Jordan Grace just shot up the ranks. She was my MVP for this entire match, and she had the best moment of the night. But before we talk about that more in depth, this was a true intergender tag team match because everybody was putting hands on everybody. It was fantastic to watch. And this saw PCO, our French Canadian Frankenstein, teaming up with Jordan Grace, taking on the team of Steph Delander, the Python powerhouse herself, versus Khan, the neck breaker. I want to talk about the entrances first. I love that Khan was so serious the entire time. I'm like, it's okay to crack a smile because he comes out, he's all intimidating and everything, and Steph comes out and she's just like having a great time. And then I saw that Steph was able to break Khan as they were walking their way down the ring too, where he cracked a smile and the camera caught it. I'm like, it's okay. You could lean into it, Khan. It's okay. Because Jordan leaned into it for her entrance. She came out and then she was the one to bring PCO back to life with the things. I was just like, I love subtle moments like this. This is why I like professional wrestling. Now, as far as the match itself went, again, this had no right to be as entertaining as this was.
Yeah, I mean, it was a solid match all the way through, and then that ending sequence was like it. I feel like the ending sequence is what really kicked off the best part of the night, which was like from that point all the way through to the end of the show.
Oh, absolutely. Jordan Grace picking up Khan, and Khan's not a small dude. That man is huge.
Yeah,
and to
he's
do
like 300 something pounds.
And to do what she did and just did a full on cartwheel with it too. I was just like, Jordan, you are my hero.
Yeah. Well, and then setting up the suicide senton for
PCO.
PCO,
Man.
and then putting out Steph again with another Juggernaut driver was just like, I mean, and the timing on it was just right to just be like, oh my gosh, it did, oh my gosh, oh my, and it's over, and it was just like, yeah, it was great. It was a great way to just like, okay, this is it, go home, let's do it, hit all our big things now,
spam the finishers.
Yeah.
This was so much fun. I loved this. This was great. I don't know. I get the feeling this might be Steph's last thing in here because it seems like it. But if we get one more match at Against All Odds, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'd be down for us to get a third match, an actual, I guess, second match between Steph and Jordan, one-on-one singles. Hell, make it no DQ match, stipulation of some kind. I mean, I'd be down to see.
Steph is the queen of the death match.
Yeah, you can make it a death match, although she has come out and said she's not a huge fan of death matches. Being in them, she likes watching them, which I don't blame her.
Right.
Like, throw it a cage match. Make it a Full Metal Mayhem match. Make it something, but to see the two of them go against each other and actually, I don't want to say have it clean, but not have as much other people involved in it and actually get to see them work against each other. And I think you could definitely sell it that Jordan, even though she's now pinned Steph twice, wants a chance to show that like she can go against her on her own kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time they fought, Steph has shown that she's like bigger and, at least as strong as Jordan. And so she's been able to kind of overwhelm her. So I think you could still promote that to like really show that Jordan wants to cement that she is the better wrestler and she's the true champion. So I'd be down if Steph's going to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, at least get us through Against All Odds before we figure out who Jordan will be facing at Slammiversary, because you're right, because Steph still holds to the narrative and she kind of has a point that At Rebellion, Jordan had help from PCO and Sammy Callahan to win.
Hmm.
This time she had PCO as her tag team partner, so giving a true one-on-one match, no one else is allowed. And then if we want to add a stipulation to it, I'd be here for it. But again, this match was fantastic, and I'm kind of surprised that Khan didn't take the pin, which means to tell me that I don't think PCO and Khan are done with each other
Hmm.
yet either, which is also great because that's another story we could build to against all odds. I'm here for it. Speaking of things that I'm here for, Chad, when I tell you this was my match of the night.
Yeah, this was my match of the night up until the main event, and I think that's partially because the main event was a form of tag team matches. But yeah,
This was
these two beat the crap out of each other, and it was the way that these two wrestle was up there with like Hammerstone and Alexander beating the crap out of each other. Like, I mean, this was such a rough match, and they tore it up.
they tore the house down. And I was really happy to see this as the semi main event of two. Like, you have this championship match be the semi main event. And whereas Hammerstone and Josh were powerhouses killing each other,
Yeah.
this is how you do two high flyers trying to kill each other.
Yeah, and the way they focused on body parts, the way they went back and forth, like, oh, you're gonna do that, like, it's the kind of like, oh, you're gonna eye gouge me, okay, I'll just eye gouge you back. Like, they just went back and forth against each other, and then like the fact that they would then work through the pain of the injuries that the other one, have done to them. That it was so good. Both of them are phenomenal wrestlers, and it's one of those things where I know that Mustafa Ali is so good, and he deserves everything that he's been getting since he was let go by WWE. But knowing how good Ace Austin is and seeing Mustafa Ali go against him and 100% keep up with him just reiterates like how good he is. And I will say, I think he has the best 450 in the business. Every time he hits it,
Yes.
it's so clean. So clean.
I'm just happy to see Ali finally get the flowers that he deserves.
Yeah.
He's been in this business for a very long time, and he was given so much crap in WWE to work with, and he did his best to try to make it work. And then I thought we were getting somewhere when he came over to NXT, and then they decided, oh yeah, we're gonna let him go before he has a championship match. I'm like, really? I was so upset. Me and Will still have never forgave NXT for that indiscretion, but that's okay because it led us to have Ali beat a legendary wrestler for the X Division title and Chris Sabin of all
Hmm.
things, and that's something he can put on his resume. And the fact that originally he was only supposed to be here until the end of February, beginning of March, and we're in the middle of May, and he has stuck around for 3 additional pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think he's sticking around for a while because he has a shirt in the shop, and they really don't do shirts for part-timers. So I'm just waiting for them to officially sign him for 100%. Like, want Ali
I,
to be here all the time.
I feel like they realized what they had with Ali, and Ali is enjoying what he's getting to do. And I think part of the reason he's not signing like full time to TNA is because he's also wanting to get to do all this other stuff that he's doing outside of TNA, which fits for the character that he has become. And I think he has enough interest in holding this title and being here for a while that he doesn't necessarily need to sign this like long-term contract to TNA, because as much as ups and downs as TNA Impact whatever has had, there's so much history, especially the X Division title, because it's probably the most synonymous title with TNA. And the fact that there's so many people that have held it over the years, the prestige and reigns that we've gotten from it, for Ali to be able to hold this and really show, like, this is another title that needs to be just as respected as the world title or the tag team titles or any titles in any other promotion. It's awesome for him to have that on his resume. And I think he's adding to the resume of the title when we look back at other runs of champions who have had this belt. I think Ali is really going to, even if it's a short term, You know, I think he's really going to cement himself as like someone to recognize as a, high level X Division champion.
Yeah, I'm excited. And since we're keeping Ali, I'm really excited to see who he faces in his hometown in Chicago for Against All Odds. But I'm really excited to see what his big marquee match is for
Yeah.
Slammiversary. Oof, so many
I
good
think
choices.
I think if he's gonna be leaving anytime soon, Slammiversary, if you can get him through to Slammiversary and you put him up against basically the person that is going to be your next big X Division champion, whether it's somebody new or somebody from the past that they're going to have step up and get another big title run, that's where you have it. Because it would be, even if he loses it, it'll be the crowning moment of like, the perfect end to his title run. And if he's going to keep going past Slammiversary, you still have that big name that he faces to defend that title against. It's just he's been doing so well, and we need a big build to another big match for him with that title.
I 100% agree. And to no surprise, after a long, hard fought 16 and a half minute bout, which was really nice to see this match get time. Ultimately, Ali is still your X Division champion. Super excited. Cannot wait. So now we get into the main event. This is the system of which is being represented by Moose, Eddie Edwards, and Brian Myers, taking on the team of Matt Hardy and Speedball Mountain. I'm just gonna leave this here.
House Hardy.
I don't care what anyone says. Broken Matt Hardy, the Ball of Speed, and Trent the Seventh. And TNA and the internet have dubbed this team as Broke Ball Mountain. So Andrew, you need to get your residual check for that one. This match was so good, Andrew.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. On paper, I was like, okay. So Nick Nemeth has to go defend his title in New Japan, so that's why he's out. Which, by the way, David Finlay beat him, and so Nick Nemeth lost that IWGP Global Championship, which sucks. But I guess as a kind of consolation prize, he is our newly crowned AAA champion, so that's awesome. But yeah, I'm like, damn it, David Finlay.
I wonder if that has to do with the fact that I'm hoping that TNA and AAA still have that,
Partnership.
agreement and partnership to work together. Because I feel like getting through this is what's going to bring us back to Nick Nemeth. I don't want to say full time, but mainly focusing on getting that TNA world title off of Moose. But if we are going to have some kind of Forbidden Door style event with TNA and AAA, seeing Nick Nemeth, kind of represent as the AAA champion, which I didn't even think about this before, but after the outcome of this match, my thought was Nick Nemeth is going to need reinforcement to be able to beat the system.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy would it be if he brought over wrestlers from AAA as their mega champion to be like, oh, you got the system? Well, I've got my own backup, and show up with some names from AAA into TNA and have that be that, intro to the Forbidden Door match. But fantasy booking aside, this match was so good. And like, half a year ago, I'd have expected thought of the system, but they are so good and work so well together, both as wrestlers, but also as this main heel faction. And Broke Ball Mountain kept up with them the entire time. Like the in-ring performance, both physically and strategically, was so phenomenal across the board. This was my match of the night. I loved it. It was just so entertaining, and the build to the end was insane. There was one point that I laughed that Edwards and Myers were calling Seven old man. He's 3 years older than Myers and 2 years older than Moose and Edwards. He's also 7 years younger than Matt Hardy. Yeah, if you look at that group, you'd think, oh, Trent Seven's the old guy.
The gray hair is a lie.
Yeah, no, he's 43 or something. Like, he's a year younger than I am. So, yeah, it was funny that happened, but it's all about perception when you see some of those folks out there. But, God, this match was so good. So good.
I thoroughly enjoyed this match. On paper, I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be fun. And then I was crying by the end of it. I'm like, no, Give me 5 more minutes. Like, I want more of this. Look, and to say I'm just like, I wasn't sure about Matt Hardy coming back and Broken Matt Hardy being back in TNA. I was like, oh man, this man can still go in the ring. I'm like,
Yeah.
that insane cutter to Moose that he hit
Yes.
was like, it blew my little mind. I was just like, AEW, what the wank are you talking about? Like, what? I'm
Well, and the
like,
fact, yeah,
ooh, go ahead.
the fact that Moose got up there, like, I mean, the way he scales up those ropes for a dude his size, like Moose is top tier world champion. I put him up there with all the world champions out there in any promotion right now. Like, I think TNA has a phenomenal world champion. The physicality of this guy is insane. But yeah, that combination was that cutter. Oh god, insane. And then Matt Hardy's leg drops off the top rope to Moose.
We're so
Um,
good.
yeah, through the table.
I'm mad. I was just like, AEW, you made me believe he was past his prime. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it depends on how you present him. And TNA is allowing Matt Hardy to do Matt Hardy things, and he's
Mhm.
working with some really reliable, good people to do so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, Broke Ball Mountain was not able to win this match, but that's okay. The system end up picking up the win here, though. We will forever get this amazing shot.
I have to
Uh,
say that
so good.
one of the finishers that the system hits that backpack stunner into the elbow drop, so good. Such a clean combination. I'm not usually a fan of tag teams that come together from single competitors using just some combination of their two singles moves, but the way that they hit that, man, it's so good. It's just very unique, and they hit it so clean that I'm just like, no, it's okay. I'm fine with that combination. That's an awesome combo. That it looks so good.
100% agree. And like we said, the system walk out with the win. And at the end of the night, they're holding about 50% of the gold in TNA. And as they system celebrates their win over Broke Ball Mountain, that is how Under Siege comes to an end for this evening. So, Andrew, now that we talked about it, I kind of feel like I enjoyed Under Siege more than I initially thought I did. But I think it's always going to be the case between watching a pay per view by myself and then talking about it
Yeah.
with other people who also enjoy professional wrestling, because I actually like this. So let's do our final ratings, and then I'm going to reveal our final prediction score for Under Siege and let the audience know what that entails for the future. But I will go first. I originally had Under Siege at like a 7, but I'm gonna give it a 7.5 for me. Upon talking it through with you and kind of revisiting the highs and the lows of it, I realized that I enjoyed it a lot more, but that's only because that I got to talk with it with somebody else instead of me just writing notes in my little notebook as I was watching this thing. So I give Under Siege a 7.5. I think for the most part they succeeded in everything that they wanted to do. Obviously, the switch up between matches definitely kind of hurt a little bit, and what brought it down majority of it was the booking decisions and like the shenanigans that were not needed between Rich Swann and Jake Something's match. But I thought everything else, all the other matches were good too. I want to see more of this. So
Yeah.
7.5 for me for Under Siege 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think us talking through gave the same effect that the card gave when I was watching it. Was as we built to the end, the last few matches were exactly how you build to the end of a show and leaving us on a high note. I gave this an 8.25. Other than a few lulls and hiccups that happened throughout the night that I think were partially due to schedule changes and late planning, there was a lot of fun action. We got some top quality wrestling and some really good storytelling, world building things with some of our supernatural style characters like Decay and the new Jonathan Gresham. So I enjoyed it. There were a few things that kind of they didn't even like they more bummed me out or wish that they could have planned a little better. And I get we don't know all the details that happen when things have to be changed last minute. But all in all, I would much rather have a slow start and with some rocky spots and end with some really high notes then start off really well and kind of just taper off by the end of the night. So for this, it was an entertaining show. I really enjoyed it. It makes me want to see where most of this is going and watch more TNA. So it did its job in that regard.
Oh, absolutely. So, the last thing we're going to do before we sign off, and then also kind of give you a preview of when to expect the TNA boys to do another live stream review. Let's go over our final prediction scores for TNA's Under Siege. So, behind the scenes, what we have decided to do post WrestleMania, since WrestleMania is like a reset for a lot of the companies in the way that we tell our year-long storytelling, we decided to do our own little predictions league where all the teams respectively and their hosts would be competing against one another to see who ends up with the best prediction score by the end of the year. So what that means is that all the hosts are in multiple leagues. So our leagues are WWE, which I include NXT as a separate division.
Mhm.
Then we have TNA, AEW, and ROH. ROH is going to have the smallest league because there's only 3 pay-per-views for ROH, and the rest of them are going to be a lot. So Will, Andrew, and myself decided that for the TNA league, we're going to have some fun with it. We made our predictions about a couple days before the pay-per-view, so there were some matches that did not make the predictions for them. And we took out some of the matches that had to get switched or canceled. And so by the end of it, I came out on top with a score of 8-1. So 8 wins, 1 loss. And Will and Andrew still did pretty well, and they ended the night with a prediction score of 6-3. So what that entails for the end of the year, we're still trying to figure out what that means. The winner is going to get some sort of prize. And our other host, Adolfo, may have a hookup with some, custom belt making that we can potentially do. But as far as punishment and loser dumb guns, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go along. But as far as when you can expect the TNA boys to be back live and together, we have a little bit of a break now that Under Siege is over. We have a couple of weeks until Against All Odds in June. So the next time you will see the TNA boys for a pay-per-view review will be in June on Sunday, June 16th. Time to be determined. But we will be reviewing Against All Odds June 16th. And then come the summer, we will be reviewing TNA Slammiversary July 21st. So it's gonna be a fun. So come back, watch the weekly reviews, but we have some time between the next pay-per-view for TNA. So for myself and Andrew and Will and the rest of the BC WrestlePod boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic. More importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch us tomorrow as the WWE crew reviews Backlash, which was a crazy show from France. But until then, ta-ta for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.